a blessing to have the opportunity to preach for you this morning. I want to thank Kelly Husband for watching Micah along here. Having a wife who works in a hospital means that she has to be gone some Sundays. And so this is one of those Sundays where it's difficult for me, it's difficult for her, it's difficult for Kelly. Because Micah's all over the place today. And it's a lot of fun. And it's great. So I want to thank her. I want to thank Lee and the elders for giving me the opportunity to preach. I really enjoy preaching. I enjoy these opportunities. We are so close to the holiday season. We are right there. And I don't know if you noticed, but every store I've been into since Halloween, and I mean every store, there have been Christmas-themed decorations galore. I mean, you can't walk into a store without seeing Christmas trees, without hearing jingle bells and all the other ridiculous Christmas songs that some of you like and some of you don't. For goodness sake, I've seen TV commercials reminding me to get my Christmas shopping done already. Like that's the reason for the season. Church, we could spend some time talking about the commercialization of Christian holidays, and that's something that I like talking about, but we have another issue that I think we need to consider. Our country, except for the Food Network, and that's always a weird way to start a sentence, but our country, except for the Food Network, has completely forgotten a holiday. In 11 days, our nation is supposed to celebrate Thanksgiving. And everywhere you go, you see Christmas. Everywhere you go, you see Christmas. Thanksgiving is in 11 days. Thanksgiving is a time for family. It is a time for turkey. It's a time for parades in the morning. It's a time for green bean casserole. It's time for the Cowboys to win a game. And of course, it's time of being grateful. So in the spirit of being grateful, our church has done something for the last 3 years, and we're continuing that this year. We celebrate Grateful Week the week before Thanksgiving. Grateful Week is very simple. Every day of the week, there is something specific that we are supposed to be grateful for. And we can simply say that we are grateful for it. I don't know how many of you participated in this or have seen this, but on Facebook right now, there's this trend where a lot of people, every day of the month, they say what they're thankful for. And they list every day of the month, and they say, day 19, I'm thankful for this, or day 11, I'm thankful for this. And that's great. But Grateful Week kind of takes that up a notch. We don't try to just say what we're thankful for. In Grateful Week, we show it. We show what we're grateful for. So the emphasis during Grateful Week is showing it by our actions. So for instance, Wednesday of this week, we are grateful for each other. Now the focus of this is certainly on our church, but if you want to be grateful for somebody else, we're not going to stop you. Please do. On Wednesday, we want for you to do something for one of your brothers or sisters in Christ. To show them that you're grateful for them. It could be as simple as giving them a hug. It could be as simple as writing them a note. But it could be as grand as having them over for dinner, as inviting them out to eat. Whatever it is, we want for you to show your gratitude for them. I encourage you to do it. On the bulletin, on the front page of the bulletin, everybody has access to the bulletin. Plus, it's up on our website for everybody who doesn't pick one up. So it's going to be there. I'll post it on Facebook every day this week what we're going to be thankful for. So you can see exactly what Grateful Week is every day of the week. Today we are grateful for worship. Tomorrow we are grateful for friends. Tuesday we are grateful for education, however that looks. Wednesday, we were grateful for each other. Thursday is my favorite. We do this every year. We're grateful for food. Yeah. So how do you show people, how do you show someone that you're grateful for food? Sharing food. Yes, it's wonderful. Friday, we were grateful for family. And Saturday, we were grateful for rest. So we encourage you to take part in this. We encourage you to show your gratitude. The focus of Grateful Week is being thankful for the good things that God has done for us, the good things that God has given to us. And we have a lot to be thankful for. We are here this morning. We are healthy enough to be here this morning. And for some of us, that is a huge accomplishment. The weather outside, as Brad knows, has been lovely the last couple of days. Church, above all, God is good. We have a lot to be thankful for. In Luke 21, that's where we're going to spend some time this morning. So I want to turn there. In Luke 21, there's some people standing outside the temple. They're talking about how beautiful this temple is. The temple's architecture was nice, but it was kind of like the Astrodome. You're going to have to follow me here. I promise I have a point. The temple's architecture was nice, but it was kind of like the Astrodome. It was ahead of its time when it was built. But then other temples were built that were bigger and grander and looked better. So what did they do? Herod comes along. And Herod, beginning in 19 BC, began building these outer courts to surround the temple. And he had these outer courts built, and they weren't just these ordinary little courts to make it look a little nice, you know. He couldn't touch the temple itself. I mean, the temple had to stay the way it was. Herod wasn't even a Jew, so he couldn't touch anything about that. But he could build these outer courts, so he did. And they made them extremely grand. The architecture of the temple became something to be marveled at. People would come from all around and just look at it and say, wow, that is special. Not only that, the temple was adorned with these lavish gifts. Josephus was a first-century historian. He's a really famous first-century historian, and he claims that whatever was not overlaid with gold was made of the purest white. Now, for that time, that is spectacular. You couldn't see anything that wasn't beautiful at this temple. Herod donated statues to the temple. And there was this one statue. I have this archaeology study Bible that I was reading about. And there's this one statue of a grapevine. And you're thinking, okay, well, that's dumb. But it is. But there's this really significant thing about it. The grapes on this grapevine are the size of a human male. That is huge. A grape the size of me. And a vine of grapes with lots of meat. It's crazy. And there are these kind of decorations all around the temple. These lavish gifts all over the place. Not only that, we know that the adornments on the inside of the temple had to follow the specifications that God laid out to the high priest Joshua during the return from exile. The temple was spectacular. You also have to consider how the temple was functioning in their society. It was the holy place where God dwelled among his people. The temple was literally where heaven and earth met. God was there. The temple gave the Israelites a cultural identity in the midst of their oppressed state. They were in captivity. The Romans ruled over them at this time. But it reminded them who was really in charge. The Romans might rule over us. Who lives in this temple? Who's in charge? They were so thankful for this temple and all that it represented for them. And along comes Mr. Doubter. We're going to start reading in Luke 21, verse 5. When some were speaking about the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, Jesus said, "As for these things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another, all will be thrown down." This beautiful temple that we put so much effort into, where God is, let me be there. So they asked him, "Teacher, when will this be, and what will be the sign that this is about to take place?" And he said, "Beware that you are not led astray, for many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and the time is near. Do not go out. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for these things must take place first, but the end will not follow immediately." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and plagues. There will be dreadful portents and great signs from heaven. But before all this occurs, they will arrest you and persecute you. They will hand you over to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. They will give you an opportunity to testify. So make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance. For I will give you words and a wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be betrayed even by parents and brothers, by relatives and friends, and then put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name. But not a hair of your head will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your souls." Did a lot of research on this passage. Looked at this passage over and over. This passage gets used all the time when people are looking at the end times. I just don't see it. Church, this passage historically deals with the fall of the temple, with the temple being destroyed. And that happened in 70 AD. You're talking a few decades after Jesus said this. So I've been wondering, I've been wrestling with what the message would be for us. Sitting in our pews, sitting here in America, without much focus on the temple. I mean, we don't have this great big temple that we look at. Our focus is on Jesus, on heaven. Church, I think I understand what he's doing. You see, the people were looking at the beauty of the temple. They saw the great big stones that were there. And they saw all these lavish gifts that it was adorned with. And they were looking at this great blessing in their life. They saw the good that they had been blessed with, and they were grateful. And that is awesome. But then Jesus speaks. And his words raise a question. Will you be thankful for the pain? Because in doing so, you will gain your souls. The early Christians were not going to have it easy. Jesus was telling them what was going to happen to them. They would be arrested and persecuted and handed over because of his name. Would they rejoice in that pain? That was a real question. The early Christians would be misunderstood and betrayed by loved ones. Would they be grateful for that pain? Some of the Christians would suffer to the point of death, just as Jesus did. Would they rejoice in following Christ in their death? The opposition would prevail most of the time. They would suffer great loss. would they have the endurance to gain their souls? There's another story in Acts 5 that I think brings to light some things from this passage. Acts 5 is the story of Peter and the apostles going to the temple to teach. And the high priest and the Sadducees seized them and put them in prison. So they're in prison all afternoon and into the night, when all of a sudden an angel breaks them out of prison. They're confused about why this angel breaks them out of prison, but the angel says, just go back and do what you're doing. So they do. And Peter and the apostles are out preaching and teaching about Jesus again the next morning. And through a series of events, they get arrested again, they get brought before the council, and by the efforts of a man named Gamaliel, they are kept alive. This high priest wants to kill them. This high priest just wants to wipe them out. But Gamaliel stands up and says, if these people are from God, you're not going to be able to stop them. But if they're not from God, they're going to end up just like this Judas guy did a few years ago. So let's just let it go. So the high priest warns them a second or third time not to preach about Jesus, and then he has them flogged. And in Acts 5, verse 41, we read this. As they left the council, they rejoiced that they were considered worthy to suffer dishonor for the sake of the name. How do we look at pain? How do we look at suffering? I bet it's not the way that this guy Francis did. I heard this story the other day on the radio. I have this button in my car. I bet a lot of them do. I just discovered it the other day. I don't push a lot of buttons. I like talk radio. And there's not good talk radio around here very often. But I push the button. There's a scan button. It just goes from one station to the next, so I don't have to listen to it for more than 10 seconds if I don't like it. So I pushed it, and I came across this story of a guy named Francis. Francis was a happy young man who loved his wife very much. He was probably younger than I was. His wife was diagnosed with cancer. His wife was a lovely woman inside and out. She was giving and loving and very gentle to everyone she met. And she was in the hospital for a few months. And it was the last few months of her lives that it ended up. But as she was in there, she was able to love so many people who needed someone to love her. And Francis, this man, was so amazed that his wife, who was dying, could be so selfless. As he watches her die, he's just amazed. And it sticks with him. But he's still a young man when she dies, and he desires to have a family. So, a few years go by, and he marries another woman. She's also a very lovely woman. She's very strong. They had children, and they were very happy. But again, she is diagnosed with cancer. She's treated for it, and they believe that she is free from it. One of their children, though, begins having kidney problems. It becomes clear that this kid is going to have their kidney replaced. They're going to have a transplant. So, through a series of events, it's obvious that she is the only one that can give the kid a transplant at the time. She has two kidneys, he can need one. They think that she's free of the cancer, so they think this will work out. So she gives him a transplant. Everything works out fine. 3 years later, her cancer comes back. She has breast cancer. But this time, the cancer spreads through her whole body. She just doesn't have enough to fight it. She doesn't make it. But she was so brave, and Francis is there through all of it. She was so brave. Francis sees all of it, and he's just so moved by it. Of course, he's devastated, but his children are there to comfort him. His children are older at this point. They do a great job for him. And over time, he regains some normalcy in his life. He lives alone for a long time, but he's happy. He has a good relationship with his kids. He finds things to be involved in. He's involved in his church. And it's there that he meets a woman. And they get married. And it's not a year into their marriage that his new wife is diagnosed with brain cancer. She's moved into a nursing home, and Francis is there every day with her. And every day, Francis sees her interact with the other residents and sees the joy that she brings to their lives. And as she slips away, he sees in her a light that he saw in his first and second lives. There's a young minister that comes to Francis. The minister is going to be doing the funeral for his third wife. And as Francis is meeting with the minister to prepare for the funeral, the minister asks Francis if he is familiar with funerals. Francis tells him the story of his first two wives, about how they had cancer. Then he starts talking about his third wife, how she had cancer. But he's overcome by the remembering of how they faced the cancer. How one was so loving, gentle. How the second was so brave. How the third was made so much joy for the residents. And so the minister is just taken back by the fact that Francis has had to face 3 wives passing away. And he asks him, is there anything specific I can pray for you for? And this is why this story stuck with me. This is why I'm sharing it with you. Francis responded with this. He said, pray that I have cancer. See, he wasn't praying to die. He didn't want to die. He was praying to learn to suffer in a way that glorifies God, like his wives had. He had come to a point in his life where he could be grateful for the pain. He could be grateful for the pain of losing his spouses because their deaths had transformed him. And that is a testimony to him. Church, when we learn to be grateful for the pain in our lives, when someone we love very dearly is sick or hurting or has passed away, when we learn to be grateful for the pain in our lives. When we have been looking for work and have not been able to secure a job, when the job we have is fallen through because of the economy, or because a boss has fired us, unjust reasons, when we learn to be grateful for the pain in our lives. When we are betrayed by people we care about, slandered by those we thought we could trust, disappointed in someone we had a lot of faith in, when we learn to be grateful for the pain in our lives. When we, like Jesus and the apostles, suffer persecution and mockery and ridicule and slander, when we learn to be grateful for that pain in our lives. This week we are going to look at the good things in our lives. That's what Grateful Week is all about. And we are going to show our gratitude for those blessings. But some of you are feeling the pain of life right now. And all of us do from time to time. So the question for us is this: can we become a people who are grateful for our pain? Church, we offer an invitation now. If you would like to respond, you have to come forward while it stands.
I have decided to follow Jesus.